Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rio de Janeiro's Jeunesse Arena, the newest home to the 2017 mid-season Invitational. It's been 7 months since SK Telecom T1 hoisted the Summoners Cup at Worlds, and now the best teams from around the world are here to make their mark on the international stage. Inside the arena, all eyes are on which region will rise. We've got cosplayers galore. We've got Brazilian fans who are hyped and ready to go. We get to experience them firsthand for the first time because we've been hearing them through our headsets back in North America, but we've arrived at Rio. I've got 3 spectacular analysts on my desk. I'm James Dash Patterson alongside Indiana Frosker in black. We got Chris Papa Smithy Smith and Isaac Azale Cummings Bentley. Gentlemen and lady, how are we doing today?
Incredible. Rio, this is my first time here, my first MSI. I do have to say this, though. I traveled all the way to the other side of the globe, and I still couldn't get away from an Australian.
What can I say? What can I say? First time in South America for me as well.
Yeah, well,
the crowd's here. They've got that reputation. They're going to be loud.
If it makes you feel any better, the Australians have gotten everywhere. We've got pastry time in NA too, so don't worry. We've got our fill. Nice. Now, the squads we'll see on stage aren't the only international teams in the house. You're getting a look at our partners here from Brazil, CBLOL, who are helping to bring the competition to the far corners of the globe, as well as our Chinese LPL broadcasting team. Now, as you can see, things are getting heated up as we count down to the opening ceremony here at MSI 2017. And as the world's best face-off on the Rift, we want to hear from you. Tweet us at LOL Esports and use the hashtag MSI 2017. But let us know what regional clash you're looking forward to the most and why. Don't forget to include that hashtag so we can check on the conversation later today. Now for a little bit of business, the format and the schedule coming into MSI 2017. The final weeks of MSI 2017 will be made up of 2 stages. First, a best-of-1 double round robin between all 6 teams. Now the top 4 teams from the group stage will advance to next week's knockout stage, a best-of-5 single elimination bracket that will decide our champion. As with last year, the 4 teams that advance to the bracket stage will secure a first pool seed at Worlds, so advancing in this tournament, all that much more important.
And it's also important to note that the first salvo was actually fired by the GPL, by the Gigabyte Marines, who went through and qualified the GPL for a spot at Worlds already because of their performance at the play-in, because they've made it here to MSI. So an extra spot in the play-ins, a spot already into the group stages of Worlds. It's a big achievement by the Gigabyte Marines.
And the question is, can they do one better? Can they get that Pool 1 seed locked
That'll be a story.
up? Yeah, that will be a story. Now, of course, the competition gets underway today with 6 games, beginning with a trial by fire for Europe's G2 Esports as they face 3-time world champions SK Telecom T1. Then it's the LPL's Team WE versus the LMS's Flash Wolves, and we'll get our first look at the 2 remaining contenders as the GPL's Gigabyte Marines face off against North America's TSM, and that's a rematch, Azale.
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot more intense than you may be expecting. If you didn't watch the play-ins, Gigabyte Marines took TSM to 5 games and almost
winning the first 2.
Yeah, they were dominating.
It was almost a 3-0 sweep. TSM able to edge out that reverse sweep to qualify here for the group stage. And with a lot on the line coming into these days, Riot's raising the stakes, and so can you. Through May 24th, you can pick up Conqueror Karma and accompanying Ward skin in client, and 25% of all proceeds will go directly to the mid-season Invitational prize pool. Now, the teams here today represent the best from their home regions, and when we look at the numbers, it's not by a narrow margin, to say the least. We have to talk about the heavy favorites here in Rio, reigning world champions SK Telecom T1. My question to you 3, is there anyone that can take them down?
And to be blunt, I gotta say no. They have the best players, the best coach, the most experience. They're the reigning champions, and to top it all off, they're even better than last year.
I mean, 7 years into the competitive scene, and finally it doesn't take a Korean analyst to hype up the Korean region. Everyone knows they come in heavy favorites, but there is still some caveats. Will they rise as champions at the end? Probably. I'm willing to make that bet. I think most of us would. But historically, the first week of MSI, the first week of any tournament is where they're weakest. This is a team that adapts to patches, that really over time figures out what's best. But a lot of us are shrouded in darkness. This team has only played 3 games in the last 3-4 weeks. They only played 3 games on 7.6 onwards. We're jumping ahead in patches, and maybe SKT, G2, it's probably a good time to be playing them.
But just to echo a bit of what Zale was saying on the side, the scary thing is you have 2 new members right now. You got Huni, you got Peanut, former Rocks Tiger there in the jungle. We had to bring in the North American and the European import to kind of boost SKT.
NA talent.
Exactly. But the scary thing is that Huni is definitely a front runner for best top laner at the tournament.
Yep.
And with more of the fighter champions coming into meta, like the Rumbles, the Fizzes, I think he's just the best well-rounded top laner at the tournament. He can play the tank now. He's matured to that. And we know that he can pull out those carry champions.
And while most people consider SK Telecom to be the tournament favorite, the team that people are looking at to perhaps unseat them would be the Flash Wolves. Of course, this is a team that in the past we've referred to as a dark horse. Papa Smithy, I know you got some thoughts on that one.
I mean, they've always been a bit shrouded in darkness. partners. No English broadcast for the LMS. You see them come into international tournaments. Everybody's like, okay, these guys are pretty good, but they've been so dominant in their region. Nobody really knows what to make of them. I think their recent performances at IEM on the global stage with their roster changes, finally, they're going away from Dark Horse and becoming real contenders. It feels like the consensus among most is that they're the biggest contender next to SK Telecom, which is a big compliment and shows finally some confidence in the Flash Wolves on the global stage.
And here's the thing, they're no longer just the Maple and Karsa show. They've upgraded their bot lane. Their AD carry, formerly known as Double Red, now known as Betty, is a massive upgrade over NL. These guys are strong across the board.
Now, of course, they did have kind of a lackluster performance in Worlds the last time we saw them at a major international play in terms of Riot tournaments, so looking for a little bit of redemption from that. But if we move ahead to our next team here, we're going to have to talk about G2 Esports. This is the true story of redemption here at MSI. Most people will recall last year, you know, all the memes around G2 vacation and whatnot. But for this squad, with some members swapped around, going to be looking to kind of achieve and move that organization to a higher level of standing.
And this is a team with an incredible amount of pressure on them, because although they have been regionally dominant, they don't have really the support of the European fans. You look at them in playoffs, people are cheering for Fnatic to beat them, then they're cheering for UOL to beat them, and they're known as these international chokers. If they could finally show up and prove themselves here, they may be able to win over some of those fans.
I mean, frankly, for me, G2 are coming in as kind of the dark horse. I like the language. Like, yes, Flash Wolves are the contender, but if you look at this really thick mid-pack of the TSM, the Team WE, G2, and Gigabyte Marines, I think G2 are just slightly a cut above. They were much more dominant, you know, a lot more 2-0s in the region than TSM, you know, dropping all those one games.
Yep.
And EU, holistically as a region, has such a smorgasbord of, like, these different types of metas. You got teams that play fast, teams that play slow, all these weird pocket picks, and so G2 have been able to adapt to everything that's been thrown to them, and coming into MSI, that's a great skill to have.
And while G2 look for redemption, a team that does not need to look for redemption would be the GPL's Gigabyte Marines. These guys have impressed from the start to where we are right now in the tournament. I mean, they were, what's the word I'm looking for? They were underhyped, right? They were discounted at the outset of the play-ins, and yet there they are qualifying here for groups and grabbing that slot at Worlds for their region.
Yeah, I mean, people were expecting Turkey to come through, Supermassive to be able to win that qualifier, but it was the Gigabyte Marines, and I think a lot of it had to do with they play their own style. They were not intimidated by the competition, whether it was TSM or Supermassive. No matter who they played, they stayed aggressive, and I think there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, exciting stylistically. They play like the nameplates are off. They play aggressive. They're a great team to watch. So they're a team that's definitely there to be followed.
Now, the flip side of that whole story is TSM and the fact that they even got pushed to a 5th game by the Gigabyte Marines yet to get to this stage of the tournament. Talk to me, Azael, about this squad and maybe some of the reservations they might have coming into day one here.
I mean, they have a lot to prove. Not only is this going to be a pretty tough matchup for them based on the play and results, but, you know, they're a team that's coming off of international failure as well. Coming out of the summer split, they were one of the most hyped teams going into Worlds 2016. They failed there, and these players are back and looking for some redemption.
All right, well, our final team is going to be the LPL team, Team WE. So, Frostgren, I'm going to hand this one off to you. Take it away.
Okay, so Chinese aggression, just kill it. Just get it out of your vocabulary. Team WE, if you haven't seen them, they play like a completely different team. That's not to say that they can't go off in the early game, that they can't play aggressive and fast-tempo games. It's just much more controlled and much more methodical. They're more of a marathon than a sprinter.
Well, and of course, if we talk about legacy with this team, it's all about rebuilding that legacy for this squad, right? As we remember, IMA qualifying over Team WE for that 3rd spot here at Worlds 2016. So a little bit of a rebuilding for legacy for them.
Yeah, definitely hurts me to remember that game. They just barely missed out on Worlds. If you haven't seen it, it was the Hail Mary of best-of-5s to knock WE out of World contention.
And this is a team that has been on an upward trend for quite some time. You know, a couple years back, they were 10th place in LPL. They go to an IEM, they bring in Mystic, they bring in Chie and some of these players.
It's a 2-year rebuild, really.
Yeah, and over those 2 years, you know, they get to the finals there, they lose. Last year, barely missing out on Worlds. Now they are the #1 seed from China in MSI, and they're finally here.
Frostgren, talk to me about the individuals on this squad, because I think we look at a lot of the other orgs and we go, there's a star player there. Who's the star here for Team WE?
You have to pay attention to Condi. He's the jungler. He's by no means the 2nd place jungler. He's definitively the best, and everything plugs into him.
All right, that's great to hear. That's going to do it for us here for a moment at the desk. We'll take a closer look at the competition in just a little bit, but it's time now to meet our contenders here at the 2017 League of Legends Mid-Season Invitational.
League of Legends has come to Florida in the first ever mid-season invitational.
Faker has never lost with LeBlanc. EDG take down Faker of SK Telecom T1 are wiped. LPL's Edward Gaming are the 2015 mid-season invitational champions.
欢迎各位观众朋友收看2016的季中冠军赛事，欢迎来到上海。
我们恭喜 IMG 在 LPL 在上海的赛场拿下了 SKT， 我们恭喜 SKT 拿下了大马快，写下了新的英雄联盟历史。
Está no ar, direto dos estúdios da Riot Games Brasil em São Paulo.
Times definidos para o Rio e apenas o Irarema.
Representando a Europa, G2 Esports. Diretamente da América do Norte, TSM. Juntando-se a nós, da GPL, Gigabyte Marines. Diretamente da China, a campeã da LPL, a equipe WE. Representando a LA Mass, Flash Wolves. Representando a Coreia,